Okay, Mr. Ivan, so I know now that you work at Northpond doing IT, but where did all of this interest for technology start, like in your childhood? Like, if you give like an age and why, if you had any inspirations.
Yeah. So my high school that I was at, I just had like a knack for math. And this is embarrassing because I'm going to age myself, but we used to have to like write our own codes and write calculators. And that was like exciting to me. Just think about you do 2 plus 2. It was exciting to do that, right? And then it just kind of unlocked this interest to want to get into technology. When I was maybe about the age of 13, my godfather, he used to be the president of a TV station, WQED in Pittsburgh. It's like PBS station. My first internship was there. And it kind of, it was like the studio and everything, but then there was also some analytics and some other stuff in the background. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to go into computers. I knew I wanted to play with wires and things like that. And as I continued through, I did some more scripting. I thought that was like really exciting to me. Went to high school and kind of started some computer science programs. That's back then when it was still sort of cutting edge to get into that space, and decided to pursue computer engineering from there. I had a couple mentors that were in my high school that really pushed me towards that direction. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I did a computer and electrical track in college, and then network engineering. And then I found my way into the hospitality world with a information management master's degree while I was at college. And then that landed me at Marriott.
Sorry to interrupt. This is at U Delaware?
Yeah, University of Delaware. The Fighting Blue Hens.
Okay, so I'm just kind of going to backtrack a little bit. So
Sure.
This was kind of your inspirations for all this. But I know you explained how this was all cutting edge technology, very new. So did you have any setbacks kind of related to this, given the fact that I'm guessing it was harder to find like a common space or multiple people could explain to you how to do this? Is this major worth it? Like, or did you have any setbacks even just in your earlier childhood too, with not many people having these degrees?
Yeah, my parents, my mom she's a dietitian by trade, and my dad is a printer, so like offset printing and publishing by trade. So trying to explain computers to them just was really not a thing, right? So they believed in me, but I didn't have all the support in the world from that standpoint of, just the push. So anything that I would try to learn or self-learn, I was faced with, are you sure that that's going to be a good thing? Or how do you know that that's going to work? It was more, I'm not going to call it pessimistic, but it was just kind of caution and
Like risky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a risk-adverse environment, right? Like, it wasn't as entrepreneurial as I think now. Also, at the time, like, if we look now, right, I think we talked off mic about this, technology has advanced so much that a lot of the things that we have now, just these mics, this whole production, it was very physical. Things were very expensive. So it was easier to think about things in theory. It was harder to just touch them and grasp them as compared to today, right? But other than some financial setbacks on being able to touch the technology that my imagination would do, I'd never allowed my imagination to get blocked from just wanting to just do anything that I could with computers.
Okay, so I know that as you were in college, we talked a little more off mic about how, there are all these new technologies emerging, like even HDMI was not like a very common
Right.
piece of technology. So were there any challenges for you emerging out of a degree and going into the world not knowing like all this technology that is emerging and kind of the complexity about how new innovations?
Yes, certainly. And well, I'd start with coming out of college. I went into the hospitality industry, right? And back then, Wi-Fi was cutting edge, right? And everybody started to get computers that had Wi-Fi, but it was very slow. And then the demand was going up, but the supply, right? The internet and just the Wi-Fi access points and routers, as you would know them in your homes today, those were hard to come by. Fast forward, we had to find different, we had to be creative in the industry, and we had to find different means of funding or otherwise to be able to expand that technology a little bit broader. But early on, going back to HDMI cables, I remember when we were putting VGA cables in hotel rooms, and we thought that was really cutting edge. And then two days later, flat screen TVs come out, right? And so I was in an industry where I was kind of always behind the eight ball, and that in itself actually motivated me even more to want to go towards something that was a little bit more innovative, allowed me to follow my dreams, channel into my passions, and allowed me, I guess, more autonomy and creative space to do things. And that's kind of where I progressed my career past Marriott to where I'm at today. And I have all those things in one.
So if we look at where you were, college life and below, with all these kind of setbacks, and given the fact that this was a very new field, and then also your parents really didn't have a lot of experience in what
Right.
you wanted to do. That happens for, I think, a lot of kids. Their parents do this, but they want to do something else. Now, did you ever have any thoughts like, maybe I should just do this instead? Maybe I should just quit? And what advice would you give to someone who maybe does feel that way, or in the same position where they don't know too much about what they want to do and their parents don't do it and they're kind of in a stuck situation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there were I can think of specific examples, maybe off mic, but where there were times where I just wanted to give up. I think two things. One, the school system that I was in and the familiar how I was raised, we hate quitters. Hate's a strong word, but we dislike quitters, right? I think it's natural that we always want to win. And though there were times and, maybe opportunities that my parents couldn't provide what I needed in that moment to quote unquote win, they always instilled values in me to find alternative routes and methods and means to be able to still put myself in a position of winning. And then also winning is subjective, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe if my goal at that time was to, build a computer, but I didn't have all the, I knew what I needed, but I didn't have the means to get those parts, find another job or do something else so that I can get. And maybe if I kind of met the goal halfway, I still won in some avenues. I still won in some aspects. I didn't just pick up and say, you know what, I'm going to go pick up a trade and start painting or something else like that. So I think my advice would be adopt the ability of learning what it means to scale, define what winning means to you, and then always never lose sight, never lose faith, right? The world is always changing. The goalpost is always moving, but that doesn't mean that the game has to change.
Okay, so this is very related to what you did with your hospitality work. So when you were kind of working with like hotels and that kind of whole production, what made you decide to lean more into where you work now at Northpond Ventures? Was there anything, like just for someone who is aspiring to do work in technology, was there anything that you want them to know that maybe gets old that you want to change for? Like what made you want to switch it up?
So I give a lot of credit to my experience at Marriott, right? And I think that was an exciting, the service and hospitality industry in general, one of the things that I loved about it is you're never going to see the same day twice, right? Like you're going to walk in and it's always going to be something different. It's partly a byproduct of the work that you do and the people and the events and other things that are going on in a hotel that you support. And then also, the staff there, right? Like if there's just during the heavy demands and things like that, it doesn't matter what your job function is, you're always going to see something new and exciting if you are a positive person and you look for that. For IT and hospitality, there's some set structured things. And over time, you can master that trade, I'd say probably in about a year or two. I was there for a while. So, you rinse, repeat, but so many times. What motivated me to move away and go somewhere else is, well, all these principles and all of these things that I learned there, why not do that at scale at a larger company, or this is a smaller company compared to Marriott, but on a larger footprint for direct accountability and responsibility. Why not see how I can take those skills that I learned there and apply it to a completely different industry, find some synergies, innovate and elevate, right? I think it's probably the largest point I drive home there.
Okay, and now after you've done all this work throughout tons of companies, Marriott and Northpond Ventures, would you say that you are glad that you got all the education you did and degrees like you did? And would you say that those have been helpful in what you do, or would you say that maybe like your degrees you would switch things up a little bit? Like looking back on all these decisions you've made to get to where you are now, would you make them again, or if you could go back, would you change it up again?
Honestly speaking, no regrets in regards to my career path and how I ended up. I think there's two things that I would do. I would probably maybe pursue an MBA. There's different career path and track that I think ultimately would have still landed me at where I'm at today. But kind of to your other point, I sat in one place for a very long time. And I think the second thing I'd say, I loved all of my experience at Marriott. I'm the type of person where if I'm somewhere and I crave autonomy, and if I'm in a good environment and the people are great, I'll stay. I'm loyal. I'll stay there, and I will continue to add value in any way that I can. And if that means that, maybe as I self-reflect while I'm in there in the moment, I'm looking at all these other people and they have these degrees and these experiences. If I would have done that, would I have had the same career trajectory? Possibly. Or I can just kind of lean in, work with them, get close to them, and adapt some of those same skills organically, so to speak, and then see how that can help me go from there. It's just I'm also a big relationship builder. I get along with a lot of people. It's good and bad, but I'm a big relationship person.
So if you have kind of like two questions, if you have minimal regrets about your career path, would you say that also means that you wouldn't have switched up a little bit sooner? You would do the 15 years and it didn't make you love what you do any less?
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, if I would have switched it up, maybe I would have switched it up a little bit sooner, maybe around that 10-year mark, right? And which is interesting because it was exactly at the 10-year mark that I switched it up within Marriott itself, right? So I did something that was, I don't want to call it innovative at the time, but it was completely outside the scope of my role's career trajectory at Marriott at that time. So what I did was I used to work on the property level. So there were hotels in the DC market that I was overseeing, actually everything in DC and Northern Virginia. And I left that to go oversee telecom strategy for all of North and South America. And then I left that to go open hotels, oversee the team that opened hotels all across North America. So within being at a large organization, jumping over to, other sub-organizations within a large company, it was in a lot of ways like, leaving that. And then from there, I did 2 years here, 3 years here, a couple months there. But I did, quote unquote, quit by staying in one organization too long, one company too long. I jumped over between different organizations over that time.
So you're kind of talking about how this has all been an experience.
Yeah.
So would you recommend, or would you say that this experience has been like a worth it to someone who feels interested in IT and technology? And what advice would you give to someone who maybe just hasn't taken that step? They're maybe debating between this and furniture, this and that. So what would you convince them to take that jump, as in the experience is worth it, not like what is your take on that?
Technology's fun, right? Like if you're a problem solving person, if you're an analytical person, even if you're an empirical person, right? Technology has a lot of that. It has all those you're going to hit all those critical points in the field of technology. If you know that, you also have to be committed to it, right? This isn't technology is it's a vast term, but it's not one of those things where, all right, well, I can do this for 2 minutes and then move out. Like anybody in a sales role can jump around like that. You can sell cars, you can sell houses, you can sell furniture, right? And because it's the art of selling, you can rinse and repeat and do that anywhere. When you go into technology, you kind of have to pick and hone in your path, and it's going to take some time to really acclimate yourself and really develop those skills. So if you want to go into scripting, you can't just go do that for 2 weeks and say, all right, I mastered this, and now let me go over into, network engineering.
You build up to get to a point that you want to be at.
Yes. And along that way, just know that there's going to be roadblocks, right? Defining what you want to do, right? There's roadblocks there. I started with end user kind of technology, doing the scripting like we talked about earlier in my days. And then now I, run head of technology for this organization. But at the same time, I've kind of stepped into the AV and other things that are not just traditional. They're parts of technology, but they're not the traditional day job that I've done. And those kind of things excite me.
Are there ever days when you have a ton of work and you are like, this is something that I thrive in, or or do you not find yourself having those days? Just for someone who is like, who just wants to know, like, is there a stress that's kind of enjoyable? It's like like a thrill.
So I'm going to answer that in two parts. I believe that, and your mom will actually, she can attest to this. I have a saying that I try to indoctrinate around here: one team, one dream, living the dream. Like, I don't just say those, that's my tagline, but I don't just say it, I believe in it, right? So I stress the amount that I allow myself to get stressed, if that makes sense, right? My stress level is only as high as I allow it to be, in other words. That's number one. Number two, I work incredibly well under pressure. You witness some things happening behind the scenes prior, and
and you're just like, oh, but then you get it done.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm driven by problem solving, and I'm driven by finding solutions, right? That's what drives, like, truly inside, that's what drives me. So if there's a problem, I don't look at it as there's an issue. I see an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to learn. Well, why did this happen? How do we prevent it in the future? But then it's also, oh, wow, cool. Done this thing this way so many times, it was outside my realm of possibility that this issue would be caused. Now we have to go about solving it, but, just kind of put something in the toolbox, and it keeps the hamster on the wheel, so to speak. That in itself doesn't allow me to get bored. Now, if you want to talk about my day job, right? Cybersecurity, just overall technology. I also oversee facilities and operations at this firm as well. So, like, I'm never bored. Kind of like the hospitality. Mm-hmm. No one day is the same.
Like, you're just kind of, you're always kind of going back and forth.
Always fluid. We have a great team here. You met Brandon and a few others, but we have a great team here, and we try to run like a well-oiled machine at all times, and we try to keep everybody in tune, in touch, just hold each other accountable. Also make sure that we have fun, make sure that we celebrate each other, make sure that we lift each other up, and just, I don't allow negativity around.
Okay.
Like, in my bubble.
So that was really interesting, because I think for someone watching, it can kind of give them the idea that if you want to pursue this career and actually sustain yourself in the long run, you have to go in with a mindset, and you have to honestly not even just force yourself the mindset. You kind of, if you have this mindset of, they'll really benefit you, of just problem solving. There are no problems without like a solution, and just being able to explore these problems and just not kind of go in being like, this happened, what do I do? Just learning.
That's right.
So I think that's a very interesting way to think about it. So
it's also life, right?
Yeah. So I think I just have one or two more questions. Sure. So the first one is, when you look back, like all the way back when you were younger, and now where you are today, not just where you were when you did hospitality work, when you look today, would you say that you reached the goals that you set as a kid when you were 13?
Wow, that's a great question. Yes. When I was younger, professional goals, that's tough to answer. Life goals, yes. I wanted to have, I wanted to raise a family, right? Like, family means a lot to me. So I grew up surrounded by older cousins who were also kind of like siblings, and I got to watch them grow and develop through college, high school, college, etc., in real time. And it really kind of shaped my being in following them. Like, I get a lot of slack that I was the oldest 12-year-old that a lot of people knew. I was like 12 going on 30, right? Just because of the environment that I was around. So that wanting to have a family, wanting to be successful, wanting to be able to provide, and wanting to have fun, all those things, I've checked all those boxes and then some. Career-wise, when I was in engineering in undergrad, I thought I wanted to do chip design, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll give you a fun fact. Your iPhone, as you know it, right?
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Like when you mean chip, you mean like motherboard type of chip?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the track that I was on in my junior year of college, right? So like engineering at my school, computer and electrical, the first 2 years were kind of the same. So like I had friends that were electrical, I was on the computer side. We all had the same classes, and then kind of junior year, you switch off. Freshman, sophomore the same, junior, senior, you switch off. And in my junior year, I thought that I really wanted to do chip design, like VHDL, all this other stuff. I can bore you with the details, but I was really in it, right? Like there's a thing called a breadboard, and
Oh yeah, breadboard you
yeah,
plug in. Yeah.
yeah. So I was really, really into that, and then I found love. So my college sweetheart is now my wife, and I had this weird inflection point of, well, I love her, but also at the same time, I have to spend a lot of time in the lab. So if I have to choose one or the
Yeah.
other, going back to that when I was younger and I admired family and I wanted to grow a family, it was like, well, I don't want to lose this. I can always come back to that. So I chose the one path, and I'm not saying, honey, if you watch this, I'm not regretting that, but I chose that path because, I'm also like I'm sort of extroverted. I'm a very social person, and then because I chose that path, I had to force myself to go a different way within engineering. And that's kind of where I went to the network side, which in computer management and network management, which was emerging still at that time. So it's not like I did I may fall back to the furniture sales as we were talking before, but I did something that was different, but not what my true love and my passion was at that time. So you asked if I were to go back and change something. Maybe I'd find a way to do that and love, because I think I'd be in a completely different space. I started to bring up the iPhone. So my senior year in a lab, they were a professor and a grad student at my university. They spun out of the lab. They spun out this company. And, well, Apple liked it and bought it because that's when they were developing their iPhone product. And the thing about the keyboard was it was kind of like a mirrored, that keyboard, what they designed physically, it was like almost like a plastic rollout, and it was a backwards mirror of a keyboard. And when you think about it, and again, don't quote, it's been so long, but they bought the company so that they can use the technology so that was the touch screen of the glass on the phone as we use it today. Because really, when you're touching the key over here, it's really the other side of the keyboard, is how they explained it.
Oh, it's like, because it's on the other side of it.
Right. So they bought that company, bought the technology, had the rights, and then iPhone has just kind of been running the game. Now, obviously, there's Android and there's all sorts of, other things that are touchscreen to use as a keyboard to this day, but they were the pioneers in that space. And if I would have stayed on that chip side, high probability that maybe involvement with a company like that or some other spin out of a lab, similar to the work that we do here, at Northpond with spin-outs of labs in the life sciences and the biotech space. But that is something that I think about sometimes. I think about it often. It's like, wow, well, missed opportunity. But I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I love you, honey.
Okay, so I have two more questions. One,
Sure.
I was intentionally gonna ask before, and then another one is gonna be my last question. But this one I'm asking is kind of about going back to high school. So college and applying to college and knowing what you want to do in high school, I mean, it's the most stressful thing. For so many kids, they have no clue what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So even just with what is your perspective on that, especially with applying to Delaware, and what you chose your major in, what you wanted to go there for, why did you go there? Like, what was your mindset throughout the whole college application process?
That's a great question. So, and I'll tell you how I landed at Delaware, but that's a great question because I think, first of all, there were probably less options back in my day, right? So I knew I wanted to do something with computers. At my school, it was computer engineering or computer science. And then on the computer science side, it was like, well, I've done that. Like, I mean, not to the collegiate level, but I knew enough about that because of scripting, and I kind of knew what I didn't want to do. I knew nothing about on the engineering side, other than robotics and things like that were still kind of emerging, but in telecommunications. But I wasn't as experienced with that. Remember, I crave challenges, I crave problem solving and solutions, so I wanted to go that way. Today's world, it's almost like they break down all the things that I learned in engineering, and those are specific majors. So I tip my hat to you as you're trying to look towards that, and I'll try to give you the best advice that I can based on my past experience. But I think the driving force for me was I knew I wanted to go to college, I knew I wanted to pursue an advanced degree, and I wanted to leave the state. I grew up in New Jersey, so I wanted to leave the state. So whatever I did, I was leaving the state, and I wanted to go experience somewhere else. But I didn't want to go too far away from family. So I actually applied. The schools I applied to and got into were University of Maryland, College Park here, RIT, Carnegie Mellon, and a few other schools because they leading engineering and technology programs. How I landed at University and University of Delaware I also applied to, great school. How I landed there though, or what was my real push to get there, I received a 4-year full ride scholarship to pursue computer engineering, and it was I was awarded a scholarship as the high school that I went to. There was a gentleman who went to my high school who also went to University of Delaware, and he was looking for, students who were really looking to pursue kind of just degrees outside of just the normal, there were some business degrees and things like that, but engineering, there were some students that were pursuing medical degrees, and he was looking to try to help those. So like, it's being able to say I went to school for free, right, versus the whole tuition and otherwise.
Yeah.
My parents also helped me make that decision.
Yeah. They're like, it's free.
Yeah, it's free. Like, how can you pass it up? From there, built a relationship, and that's where it got tough. So when I had a job lined up when I was ready to graduate undergrad, and my wife was looking for grad school, and she dragged me with her to this. Like, I had my mind made up. I was ready to work, and I was done with pursuing more education. I couldn't read another book. Or I could use a break. And my wife had her mind made up that she was going to grad school. So I went with her to this program, came across the hospitality school at UD, and they were looking for somebody like me who can help develop emerging technologies, right? Use the tech brain to help develop emerging technologies and then teach me the hospitality stuff. And they were trying to, do a new program with the School of Business. So it was like a win-win. It was like, hey, so would you like to go here for free? And I was like, well, sure. I just did this for 4 years. What's another 2, right? So that's another reason why also I would never, I look at my college experience as like such a blessing. It was a blessing all the way through. And I truly believe that every step that I've made since there is, maybe it's divine timing, but I kind of hearken back to something that I learned in my previous degree. You asked before, was there any time where I felt like I'd learned something and I've never used it? There's never been a point in my career where I haven't used something with my degree, with any of my degrees that I've earned.
Okay. It's all been really interesting. And then, so one final question. I don't know if you have kids. I don't know if you don't. I don't know if you have 2 kids. So
Kids too.
2 dogs. So for all 4 of your kids, would you feel the same way? Like, would you want them to do what you did and get a career in something outside of what you know about and outside what's familiar to you? Do you feel like it's your role to push them to do what they want to do, to learn more and to maybe gain new experiences to then choose what they want to do? Because that's what you did. You kind of branched out. Mm-hmm. It was risky. And would you want the same thing for your kids? Or would you, or did you? How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. I want to encourage them to be entrepreneurs first and foremost. And that doesn't necessarily mean go create your own business and try to sell and hustle and do things like that. Sure, if it lands that way, great. But entrepreneurs in thought, right? So similar to like my path, something that was completely outside of my parents, my immediate family scope. And I want to make sure that I show them the love and support that, and with some guardrails, like, hey, I want to go do this. No, you don't, right? But with some guardrails, I want to make sure that they know that they're supported by their parents, and that I don't want to ever put a block on their creativity, right? Like, my kids are 3 and 5, right? So I find sometimes when I say no to them about things, I can see it on their face. It's like the disappointment, and it's like, well, it's a no to that because you have to go to bed. But at the same time, I don't want that to become, why do you feel this way now? And they explain it to me, and it's like, oh, wow, that's a great perspective, right? So I'm always going to, you're still going to bed, kid, but I'm always going to, do whatever I can to help motivate them to think outside the box, be their own person, speak up every day. Each of my kids, we have like a handshake. Again, they're 3 and 5. We have a handshake. They each have their own like individual handshake. And before they leave me, when they get out the car, Daddy, I'm big, I'm brave, I'm strong. So like, that's the values that I put in them just in life. And I hope it carries over to their entrepreneurial spirit and whatever they decide to do. But one thing's for sure, they're not going to live for free, right?
Yeah.
So like I got them through high school. If they pursue college, right?
The pressure's on for a 4-year scholarship.
Yeah. The pressure is on. The pressure is on. Set a high bar on that, I guess. But whatever they want to do, always going to be supportive. I'm trying to channel into the power of yes, but I'm also going to be reasonable and have
Yeah,
guardrails there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, cool.
Thank
Thank you.
you.